Leo, what if I told you that this week, someone powerful, someone wealthy is being divinely guided to move you, to change your physical space and your emotional alignment? Not because you asked for help, but because your quiet resilience finally echoed loud enough to be felt. Let's be honest. You've been holding so much in for so long. And not just holding, you've been carrying. Carrying people. Carrying responsibilities. Carrying expectations. And yet, you kept showing up. Not for applause, not for recognition, but because walking away would have been easier, and you chose not to. Now something or someone is coming toward you. And the shift they bring? It's not a coincidence. It's not luck. It's the result of you staying grounded when it was easier to crumble. This video isn't just about predictions. It's about confirmation. Welcome to eternal mindfulness. You didn't land here by accident. Whether you've been here before or this is your first time, something led you to this exact moment. And deep down, I think you know why. You've outgrown certain spaces mentally, emotionally, even physically. The room you once fit in no longer holds the version of you that's emerging. And this week, the universe is answering that quiet feeling you've been pushing aside, the one that says, I don't belong here anymore. A wealthy man, or more precisely, someone with the resources, clarity, and alignment you've been silently calling in, is on their way. Maybe not with flowers or fireworks, but with an open door. With direction. With the kind of opportunity you don't chase, the kind that shows up when you've done the inner work. This isn't about being rescued. This is about being repositioned. You don't need to hustle for what's already meant for you. But you do need to recognize when the energy is shifting. And Leo, it's shifting now. So let me ask you something real. What have you been doing quietly that nobody clapped for? What decisions have you made behind closed doors, not for validation, but because they felt right? Because those are the very frequencies calling in your next chapter. That's the energy being rewarded now. And no, the reward doesn't always look like a trophy. Sometimes it looks like a new space. A new person. A sudden message. An unexpected yes. And when it comes, it feels inevitable. So if your body's been feeling restless, if your sleep has been lighter than usual, if you've been craving change without knowing exactly what, this is why. This week holds movement. Not just external relocation, but internal realignment. You are being shifted with purpose. Take a moment. Breathe. Put your hand on your chest if you need to. And when you're ready, drop a comment below that says, I'm ready, or 777, to claim this shift. Not just to say yes to what's coming, but to confirm that you've already been walking toward it. And before we move forward, let me say something that I don't take lightly. Thank you for being here. Your presence, your energy, your engagement, every like, every comment, every subscription fuels this space and keeps these messages alive. You are part of this constellation of souls waking up to something deeper. And trust me, Leo, you're going to want to stay with me until the end. What's coming next? It's not only confirmation. It's an invitation. And you're already closer than you think. When the universe starts shifting around you, Leo, it rarely makes a loud announcement. It begins with a subtle restlessness, a stirring in your chest that doesn't quite make sense at first. This week, That stirring is real, and it's not just emotional. It's written in the sky, woven into the language of the planets, and resonating through the core of who you are. And whether or not you've been following astrology for years or are just starting to lean into this energy, you can feel that something is lining up. Something is getting louder, clearer, and closer. With the moon moving through Sagittarius, there's this natural pull to expand, to move, to question, to go beyond the limits you've been quietly tolerating. It's not about being reckless. It's about being real with yourself. Sagittarius energy asks you, are you living a version of your truth, or someone else's? Are you still anchored where you've outgrown, or are you willing to entertain the idea that your soul is ready to explore again, not just geographically, but spiritually? And as if that weren't enough, Venus, the planet of love, value, and beauty, is forming a trine with Uranus, the Great Awakener. That's no small thing. Venus and Uranus together bring surprises, especially the kind that shake you up just enough to set you free. This could look like a sudden conversation that shifts your perspective. An unexpected offer. A reconnection. Or a revelation about what you're truly worth, not because someone told you, but because you finally felt it. Deeply. This week's alignment also touches your 4th and 9th houses. In plain terms, these are the areas of home and expansion, stability and movement. What roots you and what calls you further. That tension between staying and going, between the known and the possible, that's not something to avoid. That's the threshold. And Leo, you're standing right in the middle of it. That's not a crisis. That's a divine setup. The soul doesn't evolve in comfort zones, it evolves at the edges of what once felt safe. Now let's connect this to something even deeper. Have you ever heard the phrase, you don't have to chase what's already chosen you? That's not just poetic. It's energetic law. When your frequency matches the reality of something or someone that's been aligned with your future self, that thing begins to move toward you. Not because you hustled for it, but because you healed for it. And this week, Leo, the healing you've done quietly, patiently, without recognition, is aligning you with someone significant. Maybe it's a wealthy man, maybe it's a powerful opportunity wearing human clothes. But it's real. And it's reciprocal. You don't have to prove anything. You don't need to shout to be seen. You only need to be rooted in your truth long enough for the universe to meet you there. That's the shift. And no, it won't always be comfortable. Letting go of what once defined you rarely is. But you're not here to cling to the outdated. You're here to make space for what's been promised, not in words, but in essence. It reminds me of something I once read in a small devotional tucked between chaos and clarity, that faith isn't always a grand declaration sometimes. It's just staying open long enough for grace to do its part. That applies here, Leo. Let the energy move. Let the divine timing unfold. Let this moment remind you that just because you've been patient doesn't mean you've been forgotten. So when the unexpected comes this week, whether in the form of a person, a message, or a feeling that won't go away, don't question if you're ready. You are. Your energy is already calling it in. Stay open. Stay grounded. Let the shift do its work. The rest will unfold as naturally as the sun rises right on time. There's something sacred about the quiet choices no one sees. The ones made in silence, often with trembling hands, in moments when no one is watching, not because they're small, but because they're deeply personal. Leo, this chapter of your life has been built not by spotlight moments, but by the steady decisions you've made behind closed doors. That time you chose grace over retaliation. That day you stayed kind even when you were exhausted. The weeks, maybe even years, where you kept showing up for others, even when you felt like no one was showing up for you. These things matter more than you've ever been told. In astrology, we often talk about frequency, the energetic signature you carry. It's easy to think of it like music. Some people shout with cymbals and trumpets. But your song? It's been something deeper. Steady like cello strings. Warm like a melody that plays after everyone else has gone quiet. Not meant to grab attention, but to hold space. You've held space. And even if you haven't had the words for it until now, something in you knows. You've been doing the inner work while the world was busy looking elsewhere. And the truth is, not being seen doesn't mean you weren't heard. Not being applauded doesn't mean your energy didn't echo. Like the light of a distant star, your intentions, your patience, your quiet discipline, they've been traveling. Just because the result didn't come the next day doesn't mean the universe wasn't already in motion. There's a kind of spiritual maturity in doing the right thing when it's hard. That's what you've cultivated. And when you do that over and over again, not because it looks good, but because it feels true, that's when life starts to rearrange itself around you. Not immediately, but inevitably. You may have wondered, does it even matter? Did anyone notice? Am I doing this for nothing? That's the voice of fatigue, not failure. And if you've had those thoughts, it's okay. It just means you're human. You're tired. But what I want you to know is, the energy you gave wasn't wasted. Not a single word, gesture, moment of compassion, it all built something. You've been layering trust with the universe. And this week, that trust starts to pay off. You don't have to justify your goodness. You don't need to explain your softness. You were never weak for choosing kindness. You were strong enough to not let bitterness change you. And if that strength hasn't brought you a reward yet, that doesn't mean it won't. In fact, it means the reward might be bigger than what you imagined. There's a concept in energy healing that what's aligned for you will begin to move toward you when your nervous system is ready to hold it. And maybe that's what this quiet time was. Preparation. Expansion. Healing the inner ground so the outer blessings have somewhere stable to land. So if someone enters your life now, someone powerful, supportive, wealthy in energy or resources, don't question whether you deserve it. Don't overthink it. Just remember all the times you chose light in the dark. You didn't beg for recognition. But now, you're receiving alignment. That's not charity. That's divine reciprocity. Let this be your reminder, the universe doesn't forget. Energy doesn't vanish. What you gave returns, transformed. And the person you've become along the way? That's the real gift. You're not being seen because you demanded attention, you're being seen because your soul became undeniable. Stay steady. Something is arriving, not loud, but certain. And this time, it's coming for you. Sometimes the universe doesn't whisper, it orchestrates. And this week, Leo, you may start to notice the orchestration happening around you. Not through chaos, not through drama, but through moments that feel oddly timed, slightly surreal, and strangely familiar. That message that shows up out of nowhere. That name you haven't heard in years that suddenly reappears in your life. That dream that felt more like a memory than a fantasy. These aren't random. They're signals. You may receive an invitation this week. Maybe it's subtle, like someone offering you an opportunity you hadn't considered, or maybe it's more concrete, like a chance to relocate, shift environments, or change professional directions. Pay attention to how your body reacts when it happens. There's wisdom there. Not everything is supposed to make sense immediately. Some things are felt before they're understood. And if something shows up that feels too aligned to be accidental, trust that your frequency played a part in calling it in. A wealthy man or someone who carries the energy of abundance, clarity, and calm leadership might appear. It doesn't mean romance. This is more about alignment than attraction. He may be a mentor, a connector, a partner, or even a messenger. But what he brings is momentum. He arrives not to rescue you, but to walk with you, to open a door, not carry you through it. And what's important to remember here is this: he sees your value not because you performed it, but because you've become it. We often think we have to be loud about our growth for it to be real. But the truth is, those who are aligned with your energy will recognize your light even when you're not trying to shine. There's no need to audition. Not anymore. You've already done the work. And that's why these opportunities are finding their way to you. Because you've been holding a steady note long enough, and now, someone finally hears the song. There's a concept in energetic psychology that explains this beautifully. When you shift your internal landscape, your outer world has no choice but to respond. It's like tuning a radio. When you change the station, you hear a different song. You don't need to force what comes through. You just need to make sure you're dialed into the frequency you truly want. That's what this week is about: alignment meeting opportunity. And if a conversation opens up that feels like it could lead to something more, don't shrink. Don't question whether you're ready. The very fact that it found you is evidence that you are. Sometimes we hesitate because it feels too soon, but what if it's right on time? What if your soul has already done the prep work, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet? There's no need to perform worthiness when your energy already carries it. This is not a test of whether you can prove yourself. This is the return for having quietly become the version of you who no longer needs to. It's not about being saved, it's about being matched. And Leo, that match is coming into view. So when that man appears, or that door, or that opportunity, don't over-explain your past. Don't defend your readiness. Just step forward. You didn't arrive here by luck. You arrived because your vibration reached a point of clarity, and the universe responded. You're not being pulled. You're being met. This isn't about receiving something new just for the sake of it. It's about stepping into what was already making its way toward you now that you've finally cleared space for it to land. Be open. Be available. Be honest. Not about where you've been, but about where you know you're going. Because this week, Leo, you're not just being watched, you're being welcomed forward. When the energy around you begins to shift, Leo, it's not enough to just notice it, you have to engage with it. This is where the inner work becomes outer action. It's like hearing the distant sound of a train approaching and deciding whether you're going to stand still and watch it pass or step up to the platform, bags packed, heart open, ready to board. The truth is, Most people feel the energetic momentum building, but they freeze. Not because they're lazy or ungrateful, but because they don't know how to translate readiness into something real. So let me offer you this: readiness isn't a feeling, it's a practice. It's what you do when no one's looking. It's how you show the universe that you're not just wishing for change, you're preparing for it. Think of it this way: the universe has already RSVP'd yes to your next chapter, but it's waiting for you to clear the table. And the beautiful thing is, your table doesn't have to be perfectly set, it just has to have space. This week, I invite you to begin with something deceptively simple: journaling. Not to impress. Not to fix. But to listen to yourself. For 7 days, carve out a few quiet minutes each morning or night to ask yourself one question: what am I ready to let go of to step into something greater? Don't overthink it. Let the truth surface in its own time. Sometimes the smallest sentence carries the heaviest truth. And sometimes what you're ready to release isn't a thing, it's a belief. Then, move to your environment. Your physical space is a mirror of your energetic space. What you allow to linger around you, clutter, outdated objects, neglected corners, often says more about your mindset than your words do. You don't need a full renovation. Shift your desk, clear that one drawer you avoid, give away 3 things you no longer use. These are rituals of readiness, not chores. They tell your energy field, I'm making room. And let's not forget your body. This is the vessel that's been carrying you through the transitions, the waiting, the private breakthroughs. Give it a chance to reset. Eat lighter, not to control, but to feel clearer. Add more greens, stay hydrated with warm water, and if possible, begin your mornings with light movement. Yoga, stretching, or even just standing at the window breathing deeply for 3 minutes. This isn't about aesthetics, it's about frequency. The clearer your nervous system, the louder your intuition becomes. And right now, your intuition is trying to guide you forward. There's also something powerful in reviewing your relationship with money, not in judgment, but in awareness. Where are you spending your life force unconsciously? Where are you giving out of habit, fear, or guilt? Money is often a reflection of our internal permission. What you believe you deserve shows up in your spending, your earning, your saving. This week, just notice. Awareness alone can begin to realign your frequency toward abundance. And as you do all this, surround yourself with symbols of what you're stepping into. This week, the color gold is especially potent for you. Not just because it's beautiful, but because it represents sovereignty, the kind that doesn't need validation. Gold is light in solid form. Let it remind you that your energy has value, that your presence radiates quiet power. Maybe wear it, visualize it, or light a candle with a golden flame as your anchor. All of these are invitations, not obligations. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to participate. Because alignment doesn't come from over-planning your destiny. It comes from showing up for it, one small, sacred step at a time. And this week, Leo, those steps begin with how you choose to live while the energy is still gathering. This is your part in the dance. Make it intentional. Make it real. Make it yours. Sometimes we think change is only about us, about getting out of discomfort, breaking cycles, creating a better life. And yes, all of that is true. But Leo, there's something deeper unfolding now, something that goes beyond your personal wins or healing. You're not just being shifted to live easier. You're being positioned to live louder, not in volume, but in meaning. This next chapter isn't just about where you're going, it's about who you become for others once you get there. Energetically speaking, when someone like you rises, someone who's walked through their own darkness with grace, who chose to stay soft when life hardened around them, it sends a ripple. Like throwing a stone into still water, the impact echoes far beyond the point of entry. You might not see the full reach of it, but that doesn't make it any less powerful. You've been reshaped in silence, and now you're being placed where your light is meant to be seen. Not for attention. For activation. There's a reason this moment feels like both an ending and a beginning. In tarot, that's exactly what the Fool embodies. A leap into something unfamiliar, but not naive, just ready. You're carrying faith, not fear. And that leap is only possible because you've already traveled so far internally. You've done the preparation. You've released the baggage. You're not the same version of yourself who once questioned their voice or value. And yes, the star follows the storm for a reason. Because hope without evidence is sacred. And when you become that evidence, when your very presence reminds someone else that it's possible to begin again, that's a mission. That's medicine. You don't even need to say anything. Sometimes just being is the inspiration. Sometimes just surviving with softness is the sermon. This is the thing most people miss when they're praying for change. They think once the breakthrough comes, it's the end of the story. But it's really just the part where the story becomes bigger than you. You're no longer carrying light just for yourself. You're holding it for someone who hasn't gotten through their own night yet. And Leo, let's be real, you've had your own nights. Nights where faith was quieter than fear. Where you had to hold your own hand and walk forward anyway. That's what makes you powerful now. Not because everything's perfect, but because you learned how to trust the process without guarantees. And that brings us to the Chariot, not the fast and furious kind of movement, but the steady kind. The kind where the wheels don't turn unless your will aligns with your values. That's how you're moving now. No more rushing to escape something. You're advancing with clarity. With direction. With integrity. So when I say this isn't just a relocation, I mean it. This is placement. You're being trusted with new terrain because you've proven you can carry light through shadows without letting it dim. And that changes people. That shifts spaces. That breathes life into conversations that were starting to go stale. You're not just entering a new environment, you're bringing renewal with you. What you do with this shift matters. How you show up with openness, humility, presence is part of the assignment. You don't need to become a preacher or a performer. Just stay anchored in the truth that your journey means something. That someone else might look at you this week and think, if they made it through, maybe I can too. That's how legacy begins, not with fame, but with resonance. So yes, this new season is for your growth. But it's also for the people you haven't met yet, the ones your story will quietly strengthen. You're not leaving anything behind. You're stepping into something you've unknowingly been building for a long time. And now it's time to live it, fully. You see, Leo. Light doesn't ask for permission to shine. And you were never meant to live quietly in someone else's shadow. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. Something sacred brought you here to remind you that your relocation, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, is not a loss. It is a divine alignment. This week, something extraordinary is unfolding. A wealthy man, a powerful force, or a life-changing opportunity is being sent into your path not to fix you, but to position you. Because you were never lost. You were just being guided toward where you truly belong. And sometimes, that shift requires surrender, trust, and a quiet yes to the universe. So, I ask you gently, what if this entire time, the delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation? What if the thing you've prayed for is waiting just beyond your current location, but can't find you until you move, not just physically, but energetically, spiritually, emotionally? You've done the inner work. You've honored the silence. And now, you're ready for divine movement. A shift this sacred can't be rushed, but when it comes, it moves fast. This is your moment to say, I trust. This is your moment to let go of what felt safe and step into what's destined. And if your soul is whispering, yes, I'm ready, type it in the comments. Affirm with, I am ready, or 777, to align with this relocation energy. Let your voice echo in the comments so the universe can see your soul signature. Thank you, truly, for sharing this sacred space with me today. If this message stirred something inside you, please like this video, subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness, and share this message with someone you love. Your light might be the confirmation they've been waiting for. Now place your hand on your heart and say quietly, I am not being removed. I am being positioned. I am not being left behind. I am being chosen. I am not chasing. What's meant for me is already on its way. The road ahead may look unfamiliar, but your soul already knows the way. Trust that. Lean in. And let the divine relocation unfold.